Who is positioned to tell you no? Your character on its own. It's a character that was held within a structure that wouldn't let it slide. You preferred comfortable, so you traded their authority for their ease, and you called that trade love. You would never run a company on these terms. With no oversight and no review, and no one able to tell the founder with authority that he's wrong. You'd call that reckless. The vacuum didn't befall you. You engineered it carefully, the same way you engineer everything you actually care about controlling. 2 episodes ago, we talked about and revealed how you're the one who's choosing. And then last time, you learned why this is happening. And what we acknowledge is that you keep it to the ground where you're safe, because the alternative asks you to be a beginner exactly where you can't stand to fail. And so today, in this episode, we're going to look at the structure behind everything that has been letting both the choice and the reason run unchallenged year after year. So here's the question this whole episode is going to turn on. So sit with it just before you reach an answer. In the part of your life that you'd call most important, who is positioned to tell you no? Not someone who loves you, not someone who'd quietly like things to be different, but someone with standing, someone whose no you would actually have to reckon with. And if a name came fast and clean, that's great. Hold on to it. You may be that rare exception, because for most capable men, no name comes at all. And that absence is not bad luck. It's a structure, and yes, it's one that you built. Like everything that you've built, it works exactly as designed. So let's walk through this. Let's start with something that you'd rather not credit. You did not become capable in a vacuum. You'd like to believe that you did, and that was the discipline you built that came from inside, that drove you to yourself and put the standards that was yours alone. And sure, some of that obviously is true, but not the part that you're conveniently forgetting. Everywhere you got good, something was watching. Be it a boss who'd clock it at the moment that you slipped, a number that didn't care about your reasons. Maybe it was a client who walked the day that you stopped delivering. How about peers sharp enough to see you coast and what it was all about? Or a market that punished slippage without mercy and definitely without delay. So for your entire working life, you've operated inside of something that would not let you quietly lower your own bar. Try to lower it, and something pushed back. A consequence would show up. Someone was positioned to name it and name it to your face. And it's that pressure that made most of us and most of you reliable. Not your character on its own. It's a character that was held within a structure that wouldn't let it slide. Take an honest man and strip out every consequence for cutting corners and put him under a real load and watch how long the honesty survives. You've seen exactly that happen to other men, haven't you? They're capable and decent men who landed somewhere with no one above them and no one beside them and came apart in slow motion while everyone watched. And you already know this. It's why you build the way you build. You don't trust good intentions, not in others and not in yourself. You build oversight because you know intention drifts, but structure, that's what holds. And so you believe in accountability more than almost anyone alive. You've stacked your whole professional life on it. So I want you to hold that thought because I'm about to turn it on you. So let me ask you this. Name one standard that you've actually held to across the years that no one was ever positioned to enforce. Take your time with it. The list is shorter than you'd like it to be, isn't it? Now hold that belief up against the rest of your life, coldly. Now map it the way you'd map any structure that you were assessing. Where exactly does accountability live for you? On the work side, it's everywhere. Dense, it's layered. You couldn't escape it even if you tried. Between the reviews, the results, the partners, people who'd notice the first day that you showed up dull, the oversight there is so total that you stopped feeling it. It became the water that you swim in. Now let's run that identical map across a part of your life you'd swear matters more. Where's the review? Where's the results that come back and tells you the plain truth? Where's the person whose standing is real enough that their read on you actually changes what you do next? I want you to do that honestly, because the map comes back pretty blank. On one side, a dozen mechanisms that won't let you slide an inch without lighting up. And yet, on the other side, the things you call most important, running with no oversight whatsoever. Not light oversight, just none. No one reviews how you're doing as a husband. Nothing comes back at the end of any quarter to tell you the truth about your presence as a father. Nowhere in the domain you'd say you'd die for is there a structure positioned to catch you slipping and require you to correct it. You see, the professional in you is the most closely supervised man that you know. The personal you, well, he reports to no one. In all these years, have you never once thought that arrangement was strange? It's interesting. In the domain that you name as the most important of your life, can you point to the person or the structure positioned to hold you to a standard? And if your hand doesn't move, sit with the fact that is the finding. Now, there's a distinction you'll want to slip past, so let's just slow down a little bit here, just for a moment. You might be thinking, Al, that's not fair. There are people close to me, people who tell me the truth. And maybe that's true. But notice the gap between someone who can ask and someone who has standing. People who love you can want more from you. They can be disappointed. They can hope, quietly, for years. But wanting is not standing. Standing means an assessment. An assessment carries real weight because a no has to be reckoned with, not merely felt and absorbed and worked around. So let's think about it this way. Your board has standing. Your largest client has a standing. Their no can impose a cost that you're just not free to wave away. The people closest to you, in most cases, can do nothing of the kind. They can express. They cannot enforce. They can be hurt by the gap. They cannot make the gap expensive enough that you finally move. Well, maybe they can, and that is what we're trying to avoid and wake you up before it's too late. And there's a cruel asymmetry sitting inside of all of this. The people who hold the most standing in your life, in the end, are the ones you could most afford to lose. The people you could least afford to lose have been left with the least leverage of all. So the voices that can generally hold you to account are bolted to things that are ultimately replaceable. And the voices that matter most have been left with no real authority over the man you're actually being. You've inverted it cleanly. Maximum accountability where the stakes are really the lowest. Not at all where they are the highest. And you didn't build that inversion in a single decision. You built it in a way that water finds its own level, choosing 1,000 small times to keep the people closest to you in a place where they could be kept comfortable rather than in a place where they could be made powerful. Because comfortable people don't confront you. You preferred comfortable, so you traded their authority for their ease, and you called that trade love. So, who in your personal life holds the standing, not just to ask you to change, but to require it, with a consequence you generally could not dismiss? And if the honest answer is no one, ask who arranged it that way. Okay, let's stop fooling around here and let's name the thing that's actually missing, plainly and without rounding the edges. There is no one in your life positioned as a mentor to the man that you are. Not the professional one, the man. No peer who's earned the right to look hard at how you're living and say to your face, this just isn't good enough. And some part of you already knows that. No one was standing to call the gap out loud and make it cost something real to keep ignoring them. To look at what you've assembled everywhere else. You have advisors for your money. You have counsel for your business. You have someone for your body, your health, your performance, and for the single most consequential thing that you will ever build, the kind of man you are becoming, you have arranged for exactly no one with the standing to correct your course. And here's why that empty seat is not harmless. Accountability was never a nicety. Everywhere it existed in your life, it was the load-bearing thing, the part that kept you honest under pressure. Pull it out, and a man doesn't hold his line on willpower alone. He drifts slowly towards whatever costs him the least in the moment. And with no one positioned to flag it, that drift just runs on unchecked while it's still cheap. Until one day, it's not cheap at all. You would never run a company on these terms. There's no oversight and no review, and no one able to tell the founder with authority that he's wrong. You'd call that reckless. You could name exactly the way it ends. And yet you've been running the most important thing you'll ever build on precisely those terms and calling it private. Picture what that missing person would even do. Not a cheerleader, not a friend who agrees with you over a drink. Someone that is standing to say, I've watched you root around this for a year, and the reasons you gave me last time were the same reasons you gave me the time before that. Someone who remembers your patterns better than your excuses. Someone you couldn't charm, couldn't out-argue, and couldn't quietly stop returning the calls of without it meaning something. See, that seat, it has a shape. You've left it empty on purpose, because the man who would sit in it is the one man you couldn't manage. So the question is simple. If you'd flatly refused to run a company with no oversight, what made you decide the man you're becoming requires none? Now, the part that probably is going to land the hardest, so let's try not to flinch. A man who is accountable everywhere else does not arrive at zero accountability in the one place that matters most by accident. Think about who you are. You understand oversight better than almost anyone walking. You built it deliberately into everything you touch. You would never let a critical function run unwatched and unchecked. And yet the single most important arena of your life runs with no check on it at all. That is not an oversight in a careless sense. It's the precise opposite. It's a design. Somewhere along the line, some part of you arranged your life so that the one place you could be challenged mostly, deeply, is the one place where no one is positioned to challenge you. And the last episode already told you why you'd want it that way. Because real accountability there would cost you the exact thing you spend the most energy avoiding. It would put a person with standing in a position to tell you you're failing out loud, where you cannot bear to be failing. It would make you a beginner with a witness. So you didn't merely retreat to the ground that you're safe. You cleared the ground of anyone who could see. You built a life with no one standing close enough, carrying enough authority to make you turn and look. The vacuum didn't befall you. You engineered it carefully, the same way you engineer everything you actually care about controlling. So who specifically did you make sure could never be positioned to tell you the truth about this? And what did keeping them at that distance protect? So let's bring together these 3 episodes. You're choosing the gap. That was in episode 9. You're choosing it to stay where you can't be humiliated. That was episode 10. And now you see that you've built a structure that guarantees no one is positioned to interrupt the choosing. That's what we're talking about today. The very thing that made you excellent everywhere else existed, and with accountability, oversight, someone with the standing to tell you no, is that one thing that kept you out of the place you needed the most. Not because you don't believe in it. You believe in it more than most men ever will. You kept it out on purpose, because letting it in would mean being seen, especially by someone whose judgment you just couldn't dismiss, and at the exact spot you've decided never to look. That is the friction. You know better than almost anyone what unchecked power does to a man. You've watched it hollow out people who had no one with the standing to stop them. You could draw the arc from memory, and in the most important domain you will ever operate in, you quietly made yourself one of them. We're not handing you the way out tonight, but you should be able to feel the shape of what's missing now. There's supposed to be someone here, and you're the one who made sure that there wasn't. Band of Brothers is where men stop answering to no one and finally let themselves be held to the standard they already hold everyone else to. And if you're ready for that, you know what to do.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is the Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.